Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with my co-host Alex Ashlow. This week, we're back in campaign mode. It's been a while since I put my campaign manager hat on, or until Alex forced it to be on. To be honest, I kind of like not having it on. But you had a lot of questions from the House to the Senate to which races we shouldn't sleep on. So let's get into it. I wanted a break from trying to react to Trump doing whatever insanity he's decided to do today. But today we do have a big distraction from that. Alex,
Yeah,
we want to get started.
let's start there. And I'm glad you brought this up. So, as I'm recording this, I can actually see it, which is kind of cool from my house, to quote a vice presidential candidate of recent past. The Obama Presidential Center is kind of soft opening to kind of alumni and friends. I have been the group chat has been blowing up. A bunch of my friends are there. I'll see some of them this weekend, I'm sure. But Joe, I thought the tone and kind of it's a celebration, but it's also very pointed.
Well,
I know
it's
you wanted to get into that, but it's been fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm sure a lot of people are watching it on C-SPAN or CNN or one of the other stations that's carrying it the whole thing live. Uh, and I think CNN intended to dip in and out, but they've been pretty staying on it, and it's just a contrast of class and inclusion and hope, and positivity, and optimism in a world that Donald Trump has turned into hate and division. But the contrast, I mean, just the imagery, the comments. I mean, George W. Bush and Laura Bush are there. All the living presidents but one. Probably my guess is, I don't have to guess, he wasn't invited. But it's more the young people that are being highlighted, the capacity to remind people. I mean, I thought one of the more poignant moments in which Michelle Obama started, you could see she was clearly emotional and tearing up, was, and I'm spacing on who the incredible artist was, but who sang "The Impossible Dream," and in the context of two people growing up on the south side of Chicago, meeting each other, falling in love, getting married, and becoming the first, the first couple, first, lady and president of the United States of color, to reach that impossible dream, and the way they're, the way they're carrying themselves, and the whole program is just a remarkable contrast of civility, integrity, empathy, and yes, diversity, which I'm sure somebody doesn't like out there in the Oval Office today. But it's
Can
just
you
remarkable.
imagine? I think it was Jennifer Hudson who sang, which
Yeah,
is pretty
that's right.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Here's like Trump. I have always thought, and I know we have with the Lincoln Project explored this relentlessly at depth. So much of Trump is shaped by how much of an asshole his dad was and how he was raised. But there was always this kind of like desperate wanting to belong that I think he has, where whether it's he wants to be adored, he wants to be accepted by the other, whether it's rich people, world leaders, whatever. And for the most part, they really haven't, other than his like four authoritarian friends. So you got to believe it does have to chafe a little bit that every other living president is there having a good time and like happy, and he wasn't invited. That
Well,
look, I know your stuff, yeah, great, but it just warms my heart a little bit to know that he's probably seething that he's not there in
of
like a
course, no,
weird way.
I don't know that he's seething that he's not there. I think he is seething at the likely difference in response, that his UFC,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
his UFC show at the White House contrasted. Oh, and by the way, the UFC fighter there, trashing and attacking Michelle Obama, and Trump not reacting to all to the attack that Michelle Obama is a man. I mean, that contrast that with what's happening right now in the opening
Yeah.
of the Obama Center, and the different reaction that it's engendering, I'm sure. I mean, people, I think, across, it turns out too, I saw a poll today, I think maybe CNN asked the question because of the opening, but I think it was Obama has a 57% approval rating, favorable rating nationwide. Uh, and Biden and Trump were down there in the 30s, but Trump was definitely in the I think it was either 30 or 33. Couldn't be literally twice. Obama is literally close to twice as popular as Trump is, or to put
Yeah.
it another way, there's never been a more unpopular president than Donald Trump right now, and I don't think it's going to get any better. So, but look, I'm sure people you should tune in, look at the clips that are going to be coming out. I'm very anxious to actually see how how the media covers it in the next few days. I wonder what Fox is doing right now. But anyway, we'll get to that later. But right now, let's get to your listener questions, Alex, or wherever you want
Front
to go.
page. Oh, Fox News. It's combat footage from Russia. Moscow residents describe pure hell after massive overnight drone barrage hits oil facility, and it's all Iran stuff. Something about the rainbow thing and the whole
Yeah,
the Giants players with the Bible verses.
yeah. No mention of the
Don't even get me
Obama
started.
opening. Yeah,
Yeah, don't even get
of
me
course,
started.
because that wouldn't be news.
No.
Everybody's there, but no reason to avert your eyes.
Yeah. So we had, and I think I blame you. I don't think I blame you. You keep goading people into sending us questions, and I have literally over a dozen of them for us to get in today. But we have grouped them into themes, and today's theme is you are putting your campaign manager hat back on, which
Okay.
is cool. I have a couple kind of big, broad ones. I want to just throw three at you, and you can take any direction you want. And then we have some really fun, specific ones. But okay, so Mike in Texas wants to know, Joe, if you're advising both sides today, which I'd rather you wouldn't do, what is the biggest strategic mistake both sides are making right now that reminds you of mistakes from previous cycles? Second question from Jenna in Ohio. If we fast forward to election day 26, what do you think the election will really be about? What's the one narrative that political insiders are underestimating today that could end up deciding control of Congress? And this is from Scott in Illinois. Joe, if you had to place a bet, are the conditions we're seeing right now more consistent with a typical anti-incumbent midterm, or are we heading towards something fundamentally different? Which of those you want to hit, Joe? Your options are biggest mistake everyone's making, what this thing's really going to be about, or is it a traditional anti-incumbent midterm?
I could kind of get into all three of them a little bit.
Hit them.
I think the biggest mistake a lot of the commentary and a lot of the questions are, I understand why, but they're all sort of couched in partisan terms. And so I think part of that is a huge mistake, because to get to, if I had to place a bet today, is this, your typical anti-incumbent midterm, or are we headed towards something fundamentally different? It's fundamentally different. This is not a partisan midterm election the way we normally think of. This is going to be a massive change election. I mean, the way independents are, there's nothing. I mean, they're not being. There's nothing partisan like the traditional. Oh, many independents think they're leaning Republican. Many think they're leaning Democrat, and there's a few really true 7 or 8 points of independents that actually go back and forth. No, they're all gone. They've all turned away from Trump, MAGA, and the Republican Party right now. So the biggest mistake the Republicans are making and not getting is because they're seeing this as partisan, and they're in their Trump tribe. They're hugging the Trump tribe like there's no tomorrow, because they need those people to come out and vote for them, because everybody else has left and shut the door. And so they're thinking, looking at this in partisan terms. I think there's a lot of Democrats who are running that are doing the same thing. And frankly, in most places, if you're in a blue district or a red district, that's not going to have much of an impact. But I think in the battlegrounds, I mean, both the states and the like Texas and the battleground districts in Texas and elsewhere. The mistake is to not realize how big the wave of change is going to be. I mean, I still believe today that we're going to see a lot of people who we do not think are in trouble today lose. Most of those will be incumbents. Most of them will be Republican incumbents who, including Susan Collins up in Maine. The Plattner race kind of almost proves my point. I know all the traditional.
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions about your Plattner comments last week, by the way.
Yeah, so I just think we'll see, but my own view right now is that political insiders are underestimating how big a change wave this is going to be, and it's not. And the next thing is that particularly the Republican Party and a lot of the press still sees this in blue-red, the blue-red thing, which I think it's independents, double haters. We've talked about this on the show over and over again, but there's no signs that they're suddenly getting some interest in the Republican Party. So no, I think there's a lot of things that are being underestimated. And I think like Paxson in Texas, basically touting the MAGA line. It's going to be interesting because I think a lot of people who voted for Cornyn are going to stay. There's all these things that are going to happen that I think people are not really paying attention to. And if you start thinking about this as just sort of your usual, midterm where the party in power, can lose seats. This is, and I've said this before, it's reminiscent of either 1980 for me or maybe 1994. Where Democrats after Clinton won in '92 ended up losing the House and the Senate, but there are real reasons for that. The same kind of reasons, though, kind of exist today because just like what Clinton was doing with healthcare and raising tax, and the tax increase vote that happened in '92. There was a cycle where everybody, people blamed, almost every member of the House was blamed on the Democratic side was blamed for being the tie-breaking vote for the largest tax increase in history. That's how the Republicans sold it. Ended up, by the way, resulting in a massive surplus and knocking out the debt, and then of course everybody started spending again. But my point is, it's the same thing. Everybody knows that the reason prices are high are one guy, Donald Trump, and you can different reasons for it, whether it's tariffs, whether it's the war in Iran, whether it's there aren't enough people who will pick our crops, or how high the cost of fertilizer is and will remain to be, and we're past planting season now, so it was high all the way through it, even if it goes down now after the supposed Iran deal, which is sucky and worse than anything that he complained about Obama. So yeah, no, I think they're in trouble, big trouble.
The thing it's tough to call something a mistake when you don't truly have a choice. And I say that with a lot of Republicans who are hugging Trump and like your Paxsons of the world who are hugging the MAGA line. I think we're at the point now where the disruptive Trump has kind of been replaced in voters' minds. I'm not saying kind of. This is what's happening. He's been replaced. He's this same old Trump.
Right.
And same old is a very bad thing this year. Regardless of whether it's Trump or not Trump or whoever, he's the guy that's been there for a while when things haven't been going well.
Yeah.
And he's losing his ability to blame others. I mean, he's going to try, but point being, what we're seeing in all this data you and I have been pounding down our listeners throughout the last several months is this is showing that voters do not want same old. Whether it's, I mean, DC is
Yeah.
about to elect a socialist as mayor. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, the same old ain't going to cut it. So, okay, this is kind of to that line. This is specific to Democrats. This is Maya from Florida. If you were advising every Democratic candidate running in a competitive race, what is the one sentence everybody should be saying every day between now and November? One sentence.
If you want to end the corruption, you have to vote for change. I mean, I would take everything at corruption and change. I mean, if it's me, this is a change election. It's not a blue wave, and it's the corruption that's causing everything to go haywire. And whether that's them selling out to the to AI companies, to energy companies, to insider stock trading, all this stuff. I mean, people are like they now see what Trump really is, and I think it's time to like call it out, not be you don't have to be soft about this. You don't have to be angry screamer either, but you have to make the contrast that if you're it's the old, if you're not happy with the way things are going, vote for change. But there's a lot of things that are going on that everybody out there has their reason for wanting to change the way that things are headed right now. When you have a country that's way off on the wrong track and everybody is saying it, and I think part of the problem the Republicans have, if you're running, is the number of Republicans who both two are in two groups now. There's a group, a sizable group that thinks, gosh, the country's going great right now. Those are Trump's doing, they love Trump no matter what happens. There's the other group that's growing that says, no, the country's seriously off on the wrong track. And they mean they're having trouble making ends meet, paying the bills, paying for gas. I don't think they mean that like they did, when they were stoked up on Trump's xenophobia and racism. I don't think those things are having the impact that they would have had, that they had in 2016 or in 2024 or 24. Those people are now becoming, have become aware that, hey, things aren't going the way they thought. They, even when you get to, he promised us no more, he'd get out of wars, and he went into Iran. What everybody didn't want was a war in the Middle East. He got into one by choice. So no, there's just too many things that I think this is about. One, making sure that you tie the Republican to Trump. I mean, in terms of enabling and empowering him, and by the way, giving up their power in the House if they're an incumbent. It's just a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, and that's what people want to change. They don't want. I mean, I think in 2016 there were a lot of people wanted to vote for Trump and rubber stamps. And the same with 2024. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they want somebody who's going to take him on. That's where Susan Collins has a problem against Plattner. And Osborne gives Ricketts a problem. I mean, regardless of the race, same with Paxson and Tallarico. I think that's going to have more Byron Donalds and David Jolly. Tuberville and Doug Jones. I think people, there are now far more people who want somebody who's going to protect the country, not recreate the same, Department of Education or, defend the status quo, but are going to take on any assault
Right.
on on the values of this country. And there's far more of us today than there are of MAGA, true blue, no matter what he does there with him. That's not going to work in this election. That's why, yeah, they're now in a deep, deep trouble. And I think you've got to tie every Republican, Henson, Tyre, to all the crazy, stupid stuff this guy has done to those farmers. And and I think Rob Sand does, and Turek and those guys in Iowa. We have a great group of candidates in Iowa. I think that's why Iowa's looking very good right now.
So we have a lot of questions about handicapping all the state by state Senate races. I think we've done that enough times. I mean, the one that I would just add, and I think this is the one where candidate quality really, really matters. And I know they all tend to do, but I think Mary Peltola is the best Democrat they've run for any kind of statewide office in Alaska in a really long
Yeah,
time. Obviously,
absolutely.
she flipped the at-large seat, but when you're up against what can only be described as career Washington politician, she is such the perfect candidate to kind of show that contrast. I mean, you get it on the list. I mean, a lot of good candidates. Obviously, Sherrod Brown's a great candidate against John Husted, but I think everyone, my don't sleep on race, I'm going all the way to Alaska. Having just been there, seeing the signs, seeing the energy, I'm all in on Mary Peltola, and I think a lot of our listeners should be too. Joe, this is my favorite question of the day, and it's from John from Nebraska, and I'm guessing he is from eastern Nebraska because he's asking about Iowa. More Iowa stories. What kind of field program has to win an Iowa Senate race, and how's it different there? I think he's asking, how do you win in Iowa, and why is winning in Iowa different than, say, a Georgia or even a Michigan or an Alabama or something, Joe?
Well, Iowa is not generally has never been won by the usual TV ad back and forth kind of race. They've all been won fundamentally on ground game, and I think that's what is making this year so. What I saw on the ground there was probably the best ground game I've seen Democrats in a state, midterm race run in the state. And there's a reason. I mean, there's a reason for that. One is Rob Sand is the Auditor General. He's run statewide, won statewide, and has raised I think more money than anybody's ever raised in Iowa, and has the resources to put a real organization. He's also gone to there's 99 counties in Iowa. Traditionally, if you don't campaign in all 99, you don't win. I mean, it's even the dinkiest county. You've got to go. You got to be on the ground. You have to organize on the ground. He's already done 100 town halls covering all 99 counties, and he's now doing his second turn around the state to do that, and has organizing capacity. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. That organization knows what it's doing. The fascinating thing was you had two great Senate candidates, Josh Turek and Zach Walz, on our side. They ran a very spirited campaign to get that nomination. In doing that, they too had to co-campaign everywhere in the state and work on organization. And Turek ended up winning it. But you now have two statewide
The Walls
candidates.
people are not, yeah, but the Walls people aren't going to sit home and wonder.
No,
but that was actually a really solid example of how you run a spirited primary without turning off the other half.
Right, but what I'm saying is you have two statewide candidates who have built over months organization on the ground in Iowa. What that's doing and how it's impacting is we all thought there were only two House seats that might be in play, District 1 and District 3. They're now like no one's even talking. I mean, those are like two races that I think everybody says lean Democrat now, and they have two Republican incumbents. District 2, where Henson, the Republican senator, comes from, is one very Catholic area in up there. Of course, Trump attacked the Pope. Two, Rob Sands hails from around the same region. That district now, because she vacated to run for the Senate to be the senator, that district is now in play because of all the stuff that Trump has done, and again, farmers writ large around the state. Screwworm is coming to Iowa too. That's not going to help with beef producers there. And then you have the fourth district, which is also now suddenly coming into play. And I think that's all. In other words, so you have four House districts where Democrats are doing ground game. The Democratic nominee is doing a strong ground game in those four districts. There's only four in the state, plus two statewide campaigns with massive ability that you have to go everywhere and organize and meet people. Some people refer to this as, a campaign from the 1800s, maybe, but guess what? It tends to beat a ton of television or, a cool TikTok post. Now, yeah, they're going to run television. They're going to have cool TikTok posts. But I think in Iowa, the synergy of those four House races, the Senate race, and the governor's race, with the quality of the candidates we have, I think Iowa could be a clean sweep. And the only hesitancy I have to that is how messed up Kim Reynolds, the governor, and the legislature are. They've done all kinds of things like try to strip. They voted to strip Rob Sand, the auditor's office, of any ability to audit or do the job. I mean, stripped it of power. My guess is they'll do similar things to try to screw with the election. But I'm not worried about. I mean, no one in Iowa on the Democratic side is going to be quiet about any of it. I think you're going to see, really strong campaigns there. And look, I think right now, I think there are 6 Senate seats that are likely for us that are likely to flip our way. And
so you've got Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Maine. What are your other two?
I'm with you on Alaska, and
Alaska.
And I think Tellerico can beat Paxson.
I would rank it in that order too, by the way. But
yeah, and then if there that's 6, right?
Yeah,
Iowa, Alaska, Ohio, Texas, Maine, North Carolina. Yeah, then you still have Nebraska hanging out there as a possibility. I wouldn't count out Montana as a Republican defeat yet. I wouldn't count out even places like Mississippi. Hyde Smith is in the 40s. Now the Democrat is, also in the even lower 40s. But I can't remember the last time I saw like a 45-40 race at this point in a place like Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not done yet in terms of the economic impact. I know people are, oh my gosh, gas is down to $3.98 or wherever it's at. We'll see how long it all stays there. There's a whole lot of other inflationary stuff that's in the pipeline now. We talked about this with the producer price index being inflation being 6.5%. That the war can be over yesterday. That pipeline of what producers had to pay last month is now going to come in to what consumers have to pay this quarter. So I don't see inflation going anywhere but up.
Right.
I don't mean that it may not decline a little bit towards the end of the year here, and maybe a little bit before the election. But man, people paying these prices for 9 months this year and then going, oh, it got so much better with a week before the election. I don't think that I've never seen that work. So we'll see what happens. But no, right now, I think the House and the Senate, and I know I'm an outlier. I know people The punditry still thinks that, that because of redistricting, the House is tougher, and they never did think the Senate was in play. We'll see. I think I think even the races that you and I just called out don't include places like Kansas, and Mississippi, and Montana, and I wouldn't be stunned if one or two of those actually came into play by November. Yeah, and I've said it a lot. 1980, we thought three or four. It turned out Democrats lost 12 U.S. Senate seats that night. And I think we're headed for the same kind of change. And that was the same thing. That wasn't, we all were looking at it as a blue-red thing. And it turned out, no, everybody went like everybody. And I'm sure the double haters, I don't know that we called them that back then, but I'm sure they all voted Republican. They were just sick of the Democratic Party in 1980, and it didn't matter.
So I've got one more for you that this is, I buried the lead. This is probably, I think this is a really good one to end on. This is Hannah from Iowa. I know we've been talking a lot about Iowa. What are Republicans most afraid of right now that Democrats may not fully appreciate? Is it Trump fatigue, independents moving away from Trump, young voters, candidate recruitment, the economy? Or is it just that their base won't show up at presidential year levels? What is the thing that right now Republicans are most afraid of?
My guess is both things. I mean, it's possible to be afraid of two things at the same time. I think they've got to be afraid of the energy they're seeing with Democrats and independents. They're turning out, and we've talked about this in primaries. The Democratic turnout, the voters who are voting in the Democratic primary, the increase is insane, up compared in most places to a down decline in Republican turnout, even after they've had more competitive races and spent millions more dollars. Their turnout's been lower and ours has been higher. And then you have the historical problem that we've seen in every midterm, and that is that Trump MAGA voters do not turn out the same way they do when he's on the ballot. They don't vote in that higher turnout. They actually, decline in turnout in midterms. So you just look at those two facts alone. And they've got, then you add in all the other things you talked about: Trump fatigue, gas prices, the war, ICE, the fact that your landscaper has been deported to El Salvador or whatever. There's all kinds of other reasons, but I think the two things that I would be the most that they have to be concerned about is the massive increase in our energy and turnout, and a lot of that is driven against Trump. It's anti-Trump. Trump is energizing that turnout for sure, but at the same time, he's also responsible for people. Some MAGA, you went to Iran, you told us you weren't going to do that. In other words, they're the Epstein files. You told us you were going to release everything. Why are you hiding it? So I think there's reasons you're seeing a decline with Republican turnout, even beyond the normal MAGA voters not turning up out in midterms. And that's got to be, but as you point out, their problem is if they don't parrot him and hug him, then the MAGA that do vote aren't going to vote for them. So they've got the problem: if they denounce Trump or walk away from Trump, no one's going to vote for him. The independents aren't going to vote for him. Democrats aren't going to vote for him. And the MAGA depressed turnout is not going to vote for them either. And so, that's what Paxson, can he get every single Cornyn voter to turn out? And if he can, he still has to survive the increase with Democrats and independents in the state and the loss of Latinos
Right.
because of ice and gas prices and every other reason he's going to lose them. So now they made this, they've enabled him, they've empowered him, and I think they're going to pay a big price for it. And by the way, that gets us all the way into the usual, which is I'm really much more worried about the rolling coup that Trump and
That's going to have to be a whole
Yeah.
extra episode, Joe. We are out of time today, my friend.
Well, okay. We will get to, well, we talk about that often. In fact, we're going to have a guest, I think next week, Ira Shapiro. We've invited him on, and I think hopefully next week. And he's really been looking at what needs to happen to stop the rolling coup. So we'll have hopefully some answers for people. Also, I have my TED talk on why we need to develop our own answer to X and Elon Musk and the tech billionaires aligning with Trump is out. So if you Google, Joe Trippi TED Talk, Mid-Atlantic TED Talk, you can find it. I hope you'll check it out. Maybe we'll get a link in the show notes if for those of you who are interested. In any case, thanks everyone for listening to or watching that Trippi Show. Make sure to join us at sez.us, a civil social network for real people. Would love to see people start to join it. It's for people, not bots or algorithms, not driven by any of that stuff. Just good conversation about what we need to be doing in this moment to protect and preserve not only our rights, but democracy and our freedom of speech. This podcast will always be free and is part of Lincoln Square. So check out the latest at lincolnsquare.media. That's something else we need to do. We need to create, our own media messaging hubs to get information to people out there and break through all the disinformation and lies that they're consuming on these other networks. If you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. And you can always send us a question to thattrippyshow@gmail.com. And Alex is actually starting to get to them. You can also leave
come
us
on. I did the whole show today was questions. Get out of here.
On iTunes. We'll see you next week, and we'll see what Alex comes up with next time. Take care, everybody. See you soon.